Surely not.
Okay, everyone, if we can have a bit of silence, thank you. Good morning, everybody. Before we start the meeting, it is with great sadness that I inform you of that our friend and colleague, Councillor Bob Adams, sadly passed away in hospital on Monday. Our thoughts and condolences go out to his family and close friends. Can I please ask that the committee stands to take a minute's silence to remember Bob, a true gentleman. Thank you, everyone. So good morning again, everyone, and welcome to the Employment Committee meeting. My name is Councillor Sarah Trotter, the chairman of the committee. Time has flown in 2021 and we move swiftly towards Christmas and 2022, with senior management posts being filled, including Emma Whittaker as Assistant Director of Planning and Craig Spence, Assistant Director of Housing. Following a difficult and challenging period of COVID, a lot of work has gone into the mental health and welfare of staff. Now on to the business in hand. Can councillors and officers please ensure your mobile phones are switched off or turned to silence if matters are urgent? I urge also, when moving around the council building, face masks are worn. My Vice Chairman, Councillor Anna Kelly, will be monitoring the floor for questions. I ask for your patience today and endeavour to keep everyone to a running order, basically first come, first served. The meeting will be recorded and the recordings will be retained in accordance with the Council's document retention policy. If I feel time requires, I will ask for a comfort break at the appropriate time. I've not received in advance any requests from non-members wishing to attend and speak. However, I shall be following Rule 6.1641 of the Constitution should any non-members come to the meeting, and I will let them speak following my discretion. Can I just check? No members of the public due or here, thank you. Moving on to the agenda. Okay. Item 1 is apologies for absence.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Apologies have been received from Councillor Barry Dobson, and Councillor Rosemary Trollope-Bellew will be replacing him for today's meeting only.
Thank you, Alice. Okay. Item 2, disclosure of interest. Are there any members who have an interest to declare before the meeting commences? Take that as a no. Item 3, minutes of the meeting held on the 22nd of September 2021. If you turn to your agenda pack, that's page 3. Before we start, I just want to highlight that the committee members present, Councillor Rosemary Trollope-Bellew was standing in for Councillor Barry Dobson, so it will be amended that she is in committee members present. Thank you. Okay. So if I go through the minutes page by page, is there any other amendments to page 3? Page 4? Page 5?
Could I just ask for clarification, Chairman, please?
Certainly.
On bullet point 5 on page 5, it says that members discussed the need to communicate through the media. Was it to the media or through the media that was intended?
Sorry, where?
So the sentence reads, members discussed the need to communicate through the media the council's work on apprenticeships. Or did we want to communicate them to the media so that they could use them, or was it through the media? Or is that
any comments?
That's fine. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Kelly. So moving on to page 6. I think we've just had a water spillage, have we? We'll pause. Don't worry. Just hope you've not dropped it on anything too important. Maybe so. No, don't worry. Yeah, we'll continue. I wouldn't use anything electrical at the moment, Councillor Mason. Okay, so we got to page 7. Any comments? Page 8, I just want to highlight at the bottom, it's got 2 hads, so we'll get that second had removed. Had. I know you can't say that, but I think we can lose the had. We're just waiting for Jordan to come to the rescue. Right, we'll just go to page 9 then. Any amendments on page 9? Just want to clarify, it was highlighted by my colleague, Councillor Kelly, the MJ award, for anyone who's not sure, it's Municipal Journal. Okay. Page 10, very little on there. And I think that's it. Right, if we're all in agreement, can I have a proposer for the minutes, please? Councillor Paul Wood, and can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Adam Stokes. Thank you. Right, moving to item 4, updates from action sheet. So that's page 11. To consider updates on the actions agreed at the previous meeting held on the 22nd of September. So if we turn to minute 26, action A has been completed. So can I please ask an update to minute 28? So the People Strategy refresh has been added to the work programme and is due to be presented at a January meeting of the Employment Committee. Jane, are you able to confirm if that's on track, please?
Yes, I can confirm that's on track. Work is ongoing and is planned to bring to the next Employment Committee.
Thank you. And then factor in the review of the council's intranet into the work programme. So this has also been factored into the work programme, is due to be assigned. Can I ask if it's been assigned yet?
I understand it hasn't yet.
Yeah, well, we look forward to updates going forward. Thank you. Okay,
That's from the last minute.
yeah. We just, my colleague, Vice Chair Councillor Kelly, has just highlighted a question that she has in relation to the previous minutes, and I'm happy for her to just pose that question before we move on.
Thank you. On page 7 of the minutes of the previous meeting, below the first bullet point, it says that a buddy system could be trialled following the upcoming by-election taking place in the district. And I wondered if that is or is happening or is going to happen. Thank you.
So I don't think anything is in place from a political point of view, but I know that my colleague, the head of Democratic Services and Governance, has agreed to act as a buddy for the 2 new councillors as part of the induction. But we can work with the 2 main group leaders to ensure that a buddy system is put in place from a political point of view as well. I'm sure they'll be only too happy to help us out with that.
Thank you, Deputy Chief Executive. That's good news, because I think it's a really positive thing for new staff and particularly members and new members. Thank you. Right, if we move on to item 5, which is page 13 within the agenda pack, the HR dashboard. This is for the committee to note and discuss the information provided in the dashboard for the 6-month period, April to September 2021. Can I ask Councillor Annie Mason, Cabinet Member of People and Safety Communities, to give the presentation, obviously with the assistance with the Deputy Chief Executive and Jane, our Senior HR Officer. Thank you. Thank you, Annie.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So the committee has asked that a comprehensive update is given every 6 months, and this report introduces the HR dashboard for the first 6 months of the current financial year of 2021 and 22, covering the period April to September 2021. The report asks for the committee to note and discuss the content contained around the report, the data areas being establishment, sickness and absence, starters and leavers, performance management, learning and development, and equality and diversity. So I'm going to hand over to Alan Robinson, the Deputy Chief Executive, to provide a summary of the HR dashboard presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. So I think this is probably the key part of today's meeting. So whilst I don't intend to go through everything in detail, I do intend to kind of go into to look at those key things that we ought to be considering as this committee, and then this will help us develop our future work plan and any work that you feel. So what I'll try and do is I'll stop after each slide and ask for questions if that is agreeable to everybody, and then we can at least have the discussions as we go along. That's it. Brilliant. Okay. So this is the summary really, and it does cover a lot of information there. So you can see that we've kind of got almost a 50-50 split on male and female employees. A vast majority are full-time. We have had an increase in absence, as you can see, due to ill health, as compared to last year and previous years. So that's something that we'll talk about a bit later on. We'll go into detail on that. Then we've got, and then the next bits with one of the graphics is missing behind our picture. So the first one is the number of actual days, the number of absences. So the number of absences that have taken place, and then the final one is the number of days. Number of disciplinaries 7, so that's quite a number, but no grievances in this period. And then the starters and leavers. Now the observant of you will notice that later in the report we don't talk about 53 and 43 as leavers and starters, and that's because 3 of the leavers and starters left one job for SKDC and started in another job for SKDC, and therefore we won't include those later in the report, but they are included on that front page for completeness. So I'll move on. So on establishment data, you can see there that trend is a reduction in people who are on the establishment, as you might expect, given the times that we've been through. And that kind of continues to this day. Okay, and this slide relates to those demographics of the people who work for us. So you can see there is a real kind of there's a real cluster around my age, I think, in those numbers in terms of the kind of age profile of us, and that's something that we do need to address. And of course, we are addressing through our use of apprenticeships and the quick the kind of other young attracting other young people to the organisation to kind of ensure that we have like a reasonable spread across that, because obviously having an older profile does present us with an issue. There will be a point when that big lump of people come to retirement age. We need to be ready for that, for succession planning and the like. So we will be, and we've got plans in place with the processes that we're doing, particularly apprenticeships. Okay, this is our kind of gender split. As we said earlier, you can see in there that it is relatively even there, and I think that wouldn't present a problem. I suppose when you break that down to different roles, you may find the gender split is less even across different areas of work, but that is, I think, because different areas of work attract different genders at this point, whether that's right or wrong, but that is I think the reason. Okay, so you can see here that we've got 93% of the sorry, and 9 it's hard to see from this angle, 9.5% turnover rate, which I think is kind of fairly reasonable, but we could do some work if members wished us to on the benchmarking, see exactly where. We can do some benchmarking on that if members would like us to understand what that looks like in the sector, whether that's, I mean, with turnover, you always need some turnover, but not too much turnover, because that can be expensive. And I think it's worth us having a look at maybe some benchmarking if members were minded to do that.
Could I ask a question?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. On the
Oh,
vacancies there, it says 75 and then we're hiring. Oh, sorry. At the vacancies, it says 75 and then it says we're hiring 40. Is it there are 70 vacancies and we are currently hiring for 40 of those places? Or in addition, there are 40 places that we need to fill?
If I could just answer that, Vice Chairman. There are 31 agency contractors that's also shown on that slide, and they are currently covering those vacant posts, the balance of those vacant posts, and there are some that are probably not being filled currently that are just vacant.
Would you consider that to be a natural thing, or is that quite high currently?
I think it's quite normal. Our agency staff is relatively low at the moment in comparison to previous years.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So absence data, and I think this is probably somewhere that we do need to focus on, and people maybe have questions on this because of the increases that you can see there. So we've got increases in that kind of, I'm called white, so I think that's a long-term sick where we've got the absences are going up, which you would expect. So whereas short-term sickness seems to be more or less kind of stable at this point. Councillor Mason.
Thank you. Can I just ask that next time we present this to the committee, if we can do two very different colours, maybe a red and a blue, or a green and a blue, please? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Mason. Good point. I don't know if this is the right time to ask. I see that it would be useful to see where the council have a skills gap. Possibly, would that be one for Jane? Or to come back to me? Oh, councillor Cook.
Thank you, Chairman. Probably not for me to come back to you, but just enhancing on what you've just said, actually, is when you look at the statistics in terms of, I suppose, average age of the organisation as well in terms of employees. Obviously, we've got a number of people that potentially within the next, 5 to 10 years, not looking at you, Alan, because you'll be here for you'll be here a lot longer than that. But you've got a number of the workforce that are obviously going to be looking to retire.
Yeah.
So what we're doing in terms of that skills gap, in terms of how are we going to backfill and are some of those in really critical roles, because we all know that there's labour shortages across the market, and obviously if there's anything we can do in terms of growing our own apprentices or putting on schemes and courses to cross-train other employees. So should somebody, I think it's that point of not volatility, what is it? It's the point of failure, isn't it? We don't want to be in that point where if somebody was to retire tomorrow, we're then without someone, and it's what we do to backfill and stuff.
Yeah.
So just to come back on that, Councillor Cook, you're absolutely right. It's in our thinking all the time, and we've got a workforce development plan that comes out of the appraisals, which not only looks at people's individual development needs for the role they're in, but also considers whether they're in those kind of single point of failure, if you like, roles where we need to have a clear succession plan. So really to understand our services and to be building below that, to have that succession plan in place, because you're absolutely right, in a small organisation, you often do have those single points of failure. And that isn't really a good position to be in. So it is something that we're certainly working on at the moment, and we'll continue to do so.
Yeah, Councillor Wood, you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. I just wonder on the absence, we're talking about the year to date, so presumably that's 6-month period. These figures are for a 6-month period. On the first 2 sheets, we got the year to date, and those are those absent, 6.05 average sickness. The summary for 2021 showed 8.99. That presumably is for the 12 months. I'm just trying to get the trend. And I get the impression, am I right in assuming if it's 6.05 for half a year, that would be 12.1 if that was replicated for the year? So the trend in absence is getting not better, but going the wrong way, isn't it? Is that right? Have I assumed that right? Thank you.
Yeah, Councillor Mason, if you want to come back at that.
I think it might be helpful if we compared the 6.05 with the first 6 months of the previous year, if we can find that information and come back to the committee, because I do think that would show whether we're up.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Mason. Yeah, but that's noted and duly. Yeah. Just while we're on absences, and I'm probably to yourself, Deputy Chief Executive, have absent rates reduced or increased because of home working due to COVID?
So it's really clear. And I think, as Councillor Mason alluded to, wanting that older data, the year we're comparing to was probably one of the lowest years for ill health. And that was not only were people working from home, but they were staying in their house apart from an hour to exercise. We were all not living their lives. So the sickness was particularly down. And I think that data that Councillor Mason suggests we compare this to will be really helpful in seeing this. My sense is that actually sickness is probably at the moment higher than it would be in a normal year. But I think I would caution that, and I think it will be really useful to share that kind of that timeline a year further back, because that's probably the last normal year for us to compare it to, whereas the previous year is certainly abnormal due to the circumstances that Councillor Mason has described and I have as well. So yeah, I think my sense is it's going up though, that it's higher than normal, but I don't think that's a result of people working from home. I think that's probably as a result of people kind of having such dramatic changes in their lives. So spending a lot of time staying in to now not living more and more a normal life.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Councillor Annie Mason.
Thank you. Yeah, just to pick up on what Alan said there, when we first went into lockdown, everybody was at home, weren't they? So we weren't going out, we weren't mixing, we weren't picking up bugs, and now we're opening. Find that everybody you speak to has either got a cold or had a cold, or there's so many bugs going around. So that will have an impact on the sickness rates.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Kelly, did you have a question? Sorry.
No, I was merely thinking to myself that as we progress forward, we need to also evaluate an intangible thing like not only absence, but productivity. So to know if we're being as productive at home or more productive by using home working.
Thank you. Do you want to continue, Alan? Yeah.
So this slide breaks those details down into the reasons for sick, and both the short and the long term. So you can see there that actually, and this kind of isn't necessarily a surprise, but there are high rates on the long term sick for things like stress, depression, mental health issues, which obviously we're working hard, and there's a report later in this about the progress on mental health. And then again on the short-term absence, it does come out there as well. So you can see that there is that seems to me to be the trend that is of concern that we really do need to tackle. And again, that may be related to the pandemic and the lockdown.
Councillor Adam Stokes, do you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. It's on actually the two absent reasons for long term. We've got numbers at the bottom that says 1 and 48.64, but no reasons. And I'm assuming there are more on that, because at the right-hand side, there are slidey things that you see on the screen. So I'm just wondering what those were. Thank you.
Councillor Stokes, I have to apologise. I haven't got those details to hand. Can I share those with the committee after this event? So you want to know all the reasons for sickness in the show?
No, I'm just, because on the screen and on our pack, there is a 1 and there's just nothing next to it.
Yeah.
48.64 is nothing against that. So I'm just wondering what they were.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor.
Yeah, my
Stokes.
apologies,
Yeah.
Councillor Stokes. I'll get that sent out to the committee straight after the meeting.
Yeah, Councillor Cook.
I think obviously I know Mr. Robertson is obviously going to talk about mental health later in the meeting, but I think it's really important to note the work that I know Annie's obviously leading in terms of with the staff, with our mental health champions. Because I think if anything, coming out of COVID, I think we will be at that point where actually we will start to see more of an impact as time goes on. Because I think, and we've all noticed how in society and in community groups and everything else, the levels of tolerance and also almost respect and patience has certainly changed, and how people can go from sort of almost 0 to 100 in in a matter of seconds. And I think it's something that we've really got to monitor, because if people are working in a more remote way, in a more agile way, they are more isolated and they're not being part of a team and around people. And I think I would say human beings are social people, and they like to be around people because that's how we better learn. So I think anything we can do in order to support our staff is critical. And obviously we've already got quite an active programme anyway. Obviously the more support we can put into that, the better.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Cook. To add to that, I think particularly new starters, going back to when various jobs are started, it's so important. Certainly for the first 18 months, you've got someone to turn to. I know we're talking about the buddy system, but not just remotely, because you're still isolated. I think we very much need to encourage person to person. Thank you.
I can just elaborate on what you've just said there, Madam Chairman. But it's also, and it might be a piece of work for us as well, is as the organisation moves into a more agile way of working, for people that work at home, how do you instill the values and the processes of the organisation if they're not actually coming into an organisation? And you'll see it now with a lot of graduates, to instill the values and culture. Well, how do you do that in a remote way? Because you're not physically coming into an office and being part of a team and being part of that community, albeit, we've all got devices and stuff, but that interaction face to face is critical. So it'd be really interesting how we instill and do the welcome days for the new starters and get the value and cultures into the new starters.
Thank you, Councillor Cook.
So those are two really, really interesting points. Thanks, Councillor Cook. And I agree with you. I think those culture, those values, we've all learned, haven't we, as we've joined organisations by working with the people we're sat next to or with. And I think we've talked a lot about this in management team. It really is around making all those touch points count, because there aren't as many. So it's ensuring that when we are together, we really are focusing on those things, and that we're focusing on the values and the ways of behaving that we want here at South Kesteven are absolutely up front and centre, and making sure that, you know, we're not in the office but not working together. We're working together when we're in the office and making sure we get those across, because it is a real challenge. But there's also, you have to work harder at it. So you will have to continually stay in contact with people, keep in touch with them, make sure, and that works for the mental health side of it as well, of course, you know, because, you know, that's helping. If you understand your team, you know when there's something wrong. So I mean, we've always kind of gone through that in management. You get to know your team really well, and when the behaviours change, you're there. You know there must be something that you need to deal with, and I think that's never been more of a challenge than it is today. But I think, you know, most of our team managers have a really good approach to that, and we'll perhaps talk about that later in the day, actually, as to how some of our colleagues are dealing with that.
Thank you. Any more questions at the moment? Thank you. Do you want to carry on, Alan?
So this slide deals with the return to work interviews, and you can see there is a dip in those return to work interviews. And I'll start again. Sorry about that, everybody. Yeah, so as you can see on the return to work interviews, there is a challenge here, and there have been not as many done on the last quarter as I would have liked and would have expected. So I can assure you that all the managers have been chased for ensuring that those all get completed. Obviously, it's far more effective if those are done in a more timely manner, and we need to work really hard to get those done. We do record them on the system, and I think we have to accept we've had a number of changes in management team and gaps, but that's no real excuse. These need to be picked up, and we'll be ensuring that they are. I don't know if there's any update on those since these slides were published, Jane.
Yes, we have continued to chase, and the majority are now completed. I think there are 2 or 3 return to works that are still waiting to be done, but apart from that, the majority have been completed. We're also chasing on a monthly basis, so we've just done a chase for October's stats as well to make sure those are all done.
Okay, thank you. So I hope that reassures members that these things aren't, you know, we're not going to see this at the next quarter. We'll see when we look at this next time, we'll see that the 2 quarters in question will be 100% or really, really close to that.
Councillor Kelly.
Thank you. I wondered if there is any correlation between these being not so many returns on these and the positions that we've got empty. Do you think there's any relation between the fact that we might not have the people in place to do these things?
I think certainly.
Thank you.
I think certainly to a degree, some of those key managers' roles where they've been vacant, that may have had an impact on this, and also having new people coming into those roles who don't necessarily understand how to record those interviews is also a challenge. As my colleague Jane said, they are now up to date. So at least we've had that learning experience. For those who haven't done them before, we'll have learned to do that now. We just need to ensure they're done in a much more timely manner so that we're not having to chase, but also because they're much more effective if you do them on the first day of return, obviously.
Councillor Adam Stokes, I believe you have a question.
Well, no, it's more of a comment than a question. I'm glad that there's some reassurance there that this isn't going to continue, because it's been having 100% in Q4 to drop down to 84% in Q2 is quite a big drop. I mean, you're probably only talking a few, but it doesn't look very good when we've been in the late 90s, and I know COVID probably is going to be an excuse as well from some managers, but I'm reassured that we are continuing to push this and ensure that they are done on a timely manner.
Do you want to come back?
Yeah, just quickly as well, that you're absolutely right. And I'm concerned about it as you were seeing this raw data. But when you look at the graph in question, obviously Q4 is 6 months ago. So even if we almost would need to be looking at what this looked like just after Q4, because I'm not sure it would have been 100% if we looked at it then, but now it is. And when we look at these quarters in 6 weeks' time, I would suggest they'll be in the very high 90s, if not hundreds. And actually, if it's not 100%, I'd be wondering why that is, given the focus that we've given it over the last couple of weeks. So, but yeah, some of it will be about timing as well, Councillor Stark.
Oh, Councillor Annie Mason.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, just to say really that I'm pretty confident that we will get those up to 100%, but that really isn't the point, is it? We cannot have managers completing return to work interviews weeks after the staff have come back. So we are want to push to make sure that they are done as soon as the staff member comes back to work, and address it where they haven't, and quite sternly as well, because it's really, really important.
Yeah, I agree with you, especially if there's any staff issues. I mean, we talk about bullying, mental health, as we all know, things in the mind fester and problems get worse. So yeah, I completely agree with you. It is one of the really important subjects. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, again, this has been really high profile. Myself and the chief exec have been chasing those that are outstanding. So I feel sure that there will be a reaction to that, or I hope there will, for the future ones. And like you say, they're only useful, they're most useful straight away when somebody first gets back to work. So that taken on board. Okay, so we obviously have a number of things in place for our staff with mental health issues. One thing being the employee assistance program. So we can't say what these things were about because everything is confidential, but those basic statistics of 45 calls, 173 people visited the website, and then obviously as well we have now a team of mental health first aiders, and so far in 21-22 they've worked with 35 or there have been 35 discussions and work for them as well. There may be not 35 individuals, but we can't record that for confidentiality purposes, but there were 35 issues raised.
You've got a question, Councillor Kelly.
I just wanted to say that is 250 positive responses to a need. And I think that is a brilliant reflection of what you've put in place. And that is the point at which I'd like to commend everything that's been done. I think a fabulous amount of work has been done. And I would like to think that we have done a lot more than many other councils have done in terms of taking care of the people that work for us. And I think you need to be commended for that.
Yeah, I'd support exactly what you're saying, Councillor Kelly, as I'm sure the rest of the committee do. Okay, I'm mindful, obviously we've got a few more slides to go through, so if it's prudent, if we could sweep through them, and if there's any outstanding questions, please feel free.
Really important slides though. No, I will get through them. So see, this is the levers and starters as you expect, they kind of cross each other, and this is the thing I referred to about it being 40 and 50 here, 43 and 53 at the front. It's those three people who've moved jobs within the council. So those are kind of success stories really that people have been retained. These are the reasons that people have left. With the biggest one being just that they've resigned. Equality and diversity data. So you can see that each of these pie charts gives some information on those things. But if anyone's got any, I don't propose to go through each one. But if some of them we always know because people don't always declare some of these things. So it's a personal choice for some of them. But yeah, any questions I'm happy to take at the end.
Are we able to ask do you wish to ask a question now? Is that okay? What would you prefer to do? I'll answer
I was
questions.
just following your lead, Chairman.
I
but I'm
know.
happy to take questions
You
now.
know, it's what's prudent to the slide. I'm happy to take questions now. I was just mindful to get through everything, but
Yeah.
would you rather ask now or just wait? Yes, sure, Councillor Cook.
So obviously,
You're right.
the slides we've got on the screen, you know, a lot of people haven't stated. So why do we bother collect? What purpose do we collect this data for, and why do we collect it? Because what do we actually use this data for? Because if we're not using it, or why do we collect it?
So in a perfect world, it would help us to understand. It doesn't, because we haven't collected it historically, and we can't make people provide that information either. But of course, if we're not reflecting of society, that's something that we need to target. So we need to think about the way we carry out our recruitment and selection, in order to ensure, because the council should reflect, shouldn't it? Our employees should reflect the place we live in. That's the kind of the goal. And that of course, if we're excluding a certain element of society, again, that means that we don't get all the talent as well. So we need to be aware if it seems like we're not getting the correct, if it's not reflecting society, that means we could be missing out on talent that we could have in the organisation. So that's the reason. But yeah, I think it's a really good point, and you can see that a vast majority of people have just not provided that information. And my guess will be they're mainly people who've been here for a significant amount of time who would have to overtly go into their system and update this data.
Okay. Yeah, if we continue, as I say, if you could note any questions you've got, we'll come back to you if
Right.
that's okay.
So performance management, we've had, as we said, 7 disciplinaries and 5 investigations, which is what I call events in HR that take over from the forward-thinking work. These things come and get us. We have to stop everything and deal with these because they're urgent when they happen, and often they cause us the kind of workforce issues within our own team. Learning development. So just details of how many people have gone through what, and also details of our apprenticeships, which I think are slightly down on a previous slide, and that's because some people have finished their apprenticeships and we're still in the process of recruiting replacements. So I would hope by the next time we bring you this data that will have been increased. As we discussed earlier, it's really important to get those apprentices in, get them trained, so that they can deal with the single points of failure, as Councillor Cook said, but also to keep the kind of the age profile in at a reasonable level, so we're not caught out. That is all the data from the dashboard, so I'm happy to take any questions.
Yeah, thank you very much, Deputy Chief Executive. Just a quick question. I know on the last minutes it mentioned about iTrent, about staff updating iTrent. Is that, are staff looking at updating their details? I know they don't have to put everything, but are you getting more information that's required?
We did put an email out to staff asking them to update their details, and I think we had about a 10% response rate of people doing that, but it's something that we will do regularly to remind staff. Over time, as we get new people joining the organisation, that information is mandatory to be completed. So over time it will build and we'll have more information.
Yeah, is there anything we can do management wise to encourage, and as you say, I know it's not mandatory, but is there any way of upping this 10%, because obviously it's not ideal and it's not helpful to the council? Thank you.
So certainly we can give people time to do that. We can encourage them to do that. We can give leadership. I fill mine in, so that's so I've updated mine, and so those are the kind of things that we can do around this. I think, obviously people are really busy, so I wouldn't want to be kind of getting them to spend time on this when there's important work that needs to be done. But we can try and free up some time, maybe some personal time, team time when they can do this work. So it's something I can take back.
Yeah, thank you. I'm mindful that Councillor Kelly and Councillor Mason have got a question.
Councillor Wood and Councillor Mason.
It just depends if it's which subject is. Were you responding back? Yeah. Can Councillor Mason? I'm sorry, she's just responding back to Alan, and I'll take your question next.
Thank you. Yeah. So when we're encouraging staff to update these details, surely we should be encouraging them to update their emergency contact details. If anything were to happen to them in work time, we know who to contact. So can it all be encouraged at that point on a regular basis, rather than making more work for our staff who are very, very busy? Can we include it in there and encourage the staff to do that when they're updating their emergency contact details, perhaps?
Yes, certainly, and of course they're going into the same place on the system when they do that. It makes absolute sense. So make sure that they're encouraged to do that when they, because often you're quite right. Somebody gets a new car, or they get a new emergency, or they move house, or get a new phone number. They'll tend to update it then. So, and they'll tend to ring HR to find out what to do initially. So we can encourage them at that point to make sure they fill in all of those parts about personal information. That'd be really helpful. So thank you. Yeah, we'll do that.
Thank you, Councillor Kelly, and then Councillor Wood after Councillor Kelly.
Just going to say your IT systems could encourage them when they go in for one thing to update other things. Just want to clarify, was it said that this information is going to become mandatory?
When people apply for jobs with us, the information they have to complete is mandatory, so they have to provide that information, although there is an option where they can select prefer not to say.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, good. I'm really pleased about that, because I think that people should be able to have that individuality, and everything is not our business as employers. And if people don't want to say, I think they should feel completely free not to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wood.
Just a quick question, Madam Chairman. On the slide for disciplinaries, it says 7, but it says underneath it 4, 2 and 1. I think I know what they mean, but could I have clarification what that means? And are any of them dismissals? I think it's probably 4.
What page is it? Sorry, you've got it in front of you. I know.
Page 36.
36.
Disciplinaries, it says 4. I think it's 4 verbal warnings, 2 written warnings and 1 final warning. But I'm not sure. I just like clarification on that.
Thank you.
Yes, that's what it means.
Dismissals, does it mean there's no dismissals following that?
Yeah.
Or you're not sure?
No, you're right. There's it's a verbal warning, so no letter. That's what's got across the net. They're good, aren't they? These infographics. Yeah, so that's what that means. We haven't had any dismissals over disciplinary action this year.
Thank you. Can I ask if there are any more questions from committee? I'd like to thank everyone who's involved in preparing this presentation, and especially to Deputy Chief Executive. Thank you. So we'll now move on to item 6 on the agenda, which is the Mental Health and Wellbeing Action Plan and Update. This can be found on pages 41 to 52. I understand, obviously, that Alice, our Local Government Association graduate, has prepared the presentation. Understand, Councillor Mason, do you wish to present us with the information? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So this report provides an update on the actions of the Mental Health and Wellbeing Action Plan and asks the committee to note its contents. A previous update was given at the Employment Committee held on the 22nd of September 2021, and this report was to show the wellbeing initiatives for the period August to November 2021. Hopefully you've all had a chance to read the report, as it shows that during August to October 2021, refresher training has been given to 12 of the existing mental health first aiders by a local charity, Don't Lose Hope. Following a review, we found that some service areas would benefit from having a mental health first aider. And as a result, 9 new mental health first aiders have gone through their training by Don't Lose Hope. And we're currently looking at organising mental health first aid training for some elected members. Over September and October, we ran mental wellbeing support sessions for staff members for customer services and CCTV. It's important that we continue to recognise those service areas that deals with distressing situations and may need some extra support. These sessions were provided by Get Sorted People and aim to give staff different techniques on how to engage with people who may be experiencing mental health difficulties whilst also supporting their own mental health. And we'll continue to monitor areas that may need the extra support. We're in the process of entering into a contract with Mind to deliver online interactive training for all staff. The same learning will include managerial staff along with extra learning content to assist them to support their team. We organised a range of virtual training sessions on the Employee Assistance Scheme for members. A total of 16 members attended these sessions on how to access support and what's available. We will continue to promote the Employee Assistance Scheme to members. As you can see on the previous presentation, the Employee Assistance Scheme is used by the staff members as well. It's clear that the Council's taken a firm lead in providing support for the mental wellbeing for its staff and elected members, and I'm really pleased that we're all taking this seriously. The amount of wellbeing support put in place should actually be applauded, and I'm going to hand over to Alan Robinson for an update on how our teams are managing the wellbeing of the staff that they support.
So thank you. So our teams have a wide range of events and things that they put on, and team managers, it's often a kind of one size doesn't fit all. Each team is different and need to have a different approach to that. So most teams make contact every day or every week at least to ensure that everybody is kind of in a good place. I know most of my teams meet almost daily just for a few moments or for, you know, just to ensure that everybody's aware what's going on and just to stay in touch really, and to have a bit of a safe space to have discussions around, you know, about the week of work, but also about the way everyone's feeling and to get good understanding for that. We have a number of, now we're able to do quite a number of face-to-face in-person meetings. You'll find that this room, the chamber, is used quite a lot these days for those kind of events. And I know as well, you know, that my colleague the director of housing has had all his team in to discuss in a in-person meeting the kind of their well-being, the way they are, and again, as also gives us the opportunity with a touch point like that to deal with that culture, to deal with their values and those kind of things. So making those contact points really count. So there's a wide range of things that have gone on, including the kind of virtual coffee mornings, all kinds of different and innovative things that the team have been doing, but it always needs constantly refreshed. And I was noted recently that people are getting a little bit kind of tired, not just here, but across everybody with having those kind of virtual coffee morning kind of events. You know, there's a real kind of frustration now with teams meetings, with people becoming more and more used to being on their own, that those teams. So we do need to really work hard to ensure that continues and to refresh with new vigor and come up with new ideas for that all the time, because you can't just keep doing the same thing because people get fed up.
Thank you, Ellen. That's reassuring to hear, and you know, let's hope it continues forward in the good vein. Councillor Mason.
No, I was just going to say that, you know, we are continually doing work with the managers to ensure that they've got the tools that they need to be able to support their team. And like Alan says, you know, looking at virtual meetings, face-to-face meetings, hybrid, to make sure that all of those touch points are covered. So there is ongoing work being done in that area.
Thank you. Councillor Kelly, you have a question?
Thank you. I wondered if I could ask, please. We've used a couple of providers for those trainings, and I'm really glad those trainings are happening. I just wondered if there's any evaluation of what each provider, do they give us different things? And I just wondered, I thought Councillor Stokes would be very proud of me if I asked if there's a relative difference in costs from different providers. I hope you're proud.
Thank you, Councillor Kelly. Who's that? Who wants to answer that?
I thought perhaps somebody might have been in on all the training, so would be able to compare one with another.
Yeah, we do take feedback for all the training to ensure that it's effective. For the Don't Lose Hope, that's a group that we've met with personally, the Mental Health Working Party. So we were really satisfied that they would be a good group, and they were. The feedback was really, really good. And then for the health shot sessions, Eleanor Haswell's organisation, we've worked with them a lot in the past, so we're really familiar with them. So in terms of the cost, it was like ballpark. It was we did look at other costs for other organisations, and it was about the same. So
Thank you.
Thank you, Alice. Myself, Councillor Mason, and our Deputy Chief Executive, we've been very fortunate to visit Don't Lose Hope in Bourne and have a guided tour and see all the brilliant work that they're doing. And they were truly inspirational. So I couldn't ask for a better role model as such. So thank you. Do we have any more questions? Thank you. I just want to thank Alice for the report and Councillor Mason for your presentation. So move on to item 7 on the agenda, which is name blind recruitment procedure. At the end of the presentation, members of this committee will be asked to approve the policy. Can I please ask for a presentation of the report, Councillor Annie Mason.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So this report is asking the committee to approve the updated recruitment and selection procedure to include the name blind recruitment. Name blind recruitment report was presented to this committee on the 22nd of September 2021. And whilst the committee supported the report, it was agreed that we would bring the recruitment and selection policy and updated recruitment and selection procedure, which provides more details to the committee for approval. Appendix 1 is the recruitment and selection policy, which was issued in September 2017 and sets out the scope, objectives and principles of its approach to recruitment and selection. Point 4.9 states that this council provides a commitment to employment practices which ensure that no potential or current employee is treated less favourably on grounds of sex, race, religion or belief, disability, age, sexual orientation, gender reassignment, marriage and civil partnership, or pregnancy and maternity. The implementation of name blind recruitment helps the council to deliver on this principle. Appendix 2 shows the recruitment and selection procedure, which is a comprehensive document and supports the recruitment and selection policy. This document provides details of the processes to be followed at the various stages of selection and recruitment. You can see that a section has been added, section 11, which details the process of name blind recruitment on which the committee is being asked to approve. We can see from the report presented to you today that plans are in place for the iTrent recruitment model to be configured for name blind recruitment so that it can be rolled out to managers on a phased basis. Full training will be given and how-to guides will be supplied. It's anticipated that this will be available early 2022. Name blind recruitment has a positive impact. It removes unconscious bias in the selection process and enhances the reputation of the council as an equal opportunities employer. Only when the shortlisting has taken place will the details that have been removed be available to the managers to enable them to contact the candidates. So we're asking the committee today to approve the updated recruitment and selection procedure, which is Appendix 2, to include name blind recruitment. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mason. Can I ask if we have any questions in relation to blind recruitment, please, from the committee members?
You're wishing it.
Councillor Kelly.
Sorry, there's just one thing that crossed my mind, which was on page 49, under the heading sex and positive.
That's going back.
Sorry?
The blind recruitment is from page 53.
But it was part, oh, sorry, I took this as being part of blind recruitment, not having unconscious bias.
You
Sorry.
know, if you feel that it's in relation to name blind recruitment, I have no issue unless anyone else does with asking that question to the relevant person. Just, do you want to repeat?
It was just that on page 49 at the bottom there, I felt that we had made an unconscious bias in our notes by saying wellbeing sessions outlined in the action plan cater for a diverse range of issues faced by both sexes. There's an unconscious bias there that we think there are two sexes because both means two. So I
Okay,
just wondered if in our language,
I can see, I'm looking at Jane. Are you able to respond?
Page 49 is the quality analysis for the mental health and wellbeing action plan. That refers to the previous report.
oh right,
Is
but
that
was
what
still
you're
being
querying?
unconsciously biased.
I think
Sorry, I
it's relevant to the subject we're
Okay.
talking, but obviously we are going back, but I you know, I feel that it's prudent that that question can be asked. Yeah, councillor Cook, and I can see Alan Robinson probably wants to come back.
Thank you, Chairman. So I think Councillor Clay is probably right. It just needs a change of wording.
just take the word both out.
Yeah,
and-
it just needs a change of wording
Yeah.
for future reports in terms of, you know, because obviously gender identification isn't just two, it can be more than that. So
Thank you, councillor
Sorry.
Cook. Are
Sorry.
you happy with this, councillor Kelly?
Yeah, that's fine. I just think we do unconsciously do things and we need to be aware of them sometimes.
Yeah, thank you. Keeping to agenda item 7, councillor Adam Stokes.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. It was relation to paragraph 1.11. It says the work is due to take place before the end of 2021. I'm assuming that's with iTrent. I'm just wondering when that work will take place. Thank you.
I don't know that we have an exact date yet, but it is due to take place before the end of the year so that we're ready to start rolling out name blind recruitment in early 2022.
Okay,
Wasn't, yeah.
a sh-
It's
a
gonna have
shrug
to
of
be,
the
isn't it?
shoulders. Okay. Any other questions, please? Right, so if we can move to the vote, can I request a show of hands for the approval of the policy?
Can I actually propose that, please, Chairman?
Sorry, yes. Jumping ahead again. Can I have a proposer, please?
I'll propose them,
And
Chairman.
a seconder, please. Councillor Rosemary Trollope, will
I'll
you second it? And obviously Adam Stokes proposed. Those in favour? Motion is carried. Thank you unanimously. I declare the policy is accepted. Okay, moving on to item 8. We now have a verbal update from Deputy Chief Executive Alan Robertson on plans for returning to work at the SKDC offices. Following the presentation, members of this committee were required to consider the options available to facilitate the return back to offices following the COVID-19 pandemic. Over to you, Alan.
Thank you, Chairman. And I think we had planned that by this point of the year, we'd be much further advanced in the return to our office. But of course, what we found is that due to the pandemic, we're actually at the highest rate that we've had for infections and the like. So actually, we're not as far down the line as we'd expected to be. And we hope that we'll be able to have much more detail in the new year as to exactly what we're going to do, because at the moment, there are no plans to make immediate changes to the work that we're doing. But I think what's really useful will be to discuss the principles that we, as a management team, have developed for any return, because if we know what that is, and we know that the committee agree with that, then we can plan appropriately. And from my point of view, there are kind of 3 key things in terms of the return to the office. It's firstly, and very first, is that the business comes first. Actually, where is it best to do your work? Do you need to be in the office do not need to be in the office need to be a really clear, the first consideration. And as we've discussed already, there will be the necessity for some time in the office because we'll need to do that culture stuff, the behaviours, team bonding, those kind of things. And there'll also be some jobs that need to be in the office. You can't work on the reception at customer services from home. So those kind of jobs that our waste operatives need to be out and about, they're not working from home. So, and each element of our business will be slightly different because the business coming first, we run, you know, more than 20 different types of business in the council. We're unusual and unique, I think, in as organisations, councils, we run lots of different, very different services. So those will be our main considerations. Below that, we'll also look at, and it's been a theme today, the impact on our individual staff will be probably the next thing down. So if we have staff who either need to be in the office because their home circumstances or their mental health mean that being in the office is important, then we will work as hard as we can to make arrangements for that. And then finally, we might look at choice. You know, the last bit is, where do people want to work? Because obviously where people are happiest working, there'll be the view is, and I think Councillor Kelly said it earlier, actually people tend to be more productive if they're working in the environment that they choose, because they'll want to make it work, they'll want to show you it's effective, and there's a lot of evidence that is the case. So that's where we're at with those kind of 3 levels of priority. So it's kind of business comes first, obviously, personal need, and then personal choice. What we found so far, we have got a number of staff coming into the office, but you know, and we're certainly doing more and more team meetings in the office, or where we have the need for creative work, where people need to work together for creative pieces of work, things like that, things like the property, things like the comms team, those kind of things, and they do come together for that. But most departments are kind of having that blended approach where they come in when they need to, and I think that's probably going to be the plan going forward. Certainly from our surveys and the like, almost all our staff's preference is for a blended approach, with some time formally in the office and other times working from home. That's what they're kind of that's what we're being told by around 80% of our staff. That's their preferred option. So those are the principles we're going to be using at the moment. But I'm happy to have that discussion if anybody's got any concerns about that approach.
Thank you, Deputy Chief Executive. I've just got one question. Do we know if productivity has dropped since home working has been increased, has been introduced? Has it increased?
I think that there's any evidence that it's decreased.
Okay.
But obviously we continue to do performance management. So, and as in everything, some performance has got better, some has declined. But as you know, I think in general terms, it's not actually affected it at all. We've been able to continue to do our work, just not in the office. I think the danger is that long term becoming not part of the organisation, you know, like losing the connectivity to the organisation. I think that's where the risk lies, rather than in productivity, and that's where we need to work hard. So there isn't any evidence that there's been a reduction in productivity, but we'll continue to review that.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Through our normal performance management.
Yeah, I'll bring in Councillor Kelly just on the same subject. You say a blended approach, so we're not sticking to sort of structure as such. So going to work, working from home, say 3 days, coming into the office for 2. Is it fairly sort of fluid?
So at the moment, yes, it is fluid. Now, I think the management team would take the view, but looking to you to support on this, that everybody needs to spend at least some time in the office to get that connectivity to the office. So I'd be looking at, you know, like a blended approach with at least some days when we're in the office with, you know, booking desks, that kind of thing, rather than everybody in the office every day. You know, it just makes sense that in the new world we'll take advantage of the newfound way of working that we've got over the last 18 months, and where it's the right thing to do, we'll do that. But yeah, I think there will probably be, and that might be department by department. So it might be that in some departments it's 3 days a week, in some departments it's one. It just depends on the kind of work you're doing. And I'll be guided really by those heads of service and managers as to what works best for their business.
Thank you. Yeah, Councillor Wood, I understand you were first.
Yeah, yeah, thanks for that, Alan. I can see we've got to be flexible. I accept what you say. I just wondered if, while we're in this period, and we've got to be cautious going forward. In this time where we are now, they're flexible. How do we keep a check on who's in and who's out? Do staff have to log in and register in, or if they're working from home, or is it left totally at the discretion of the section manager to monitor it, or how do we know that our staff at home or they're coming in? I realise functions have kept going as normal and people come in when they're necessary, but it's really a question of, I heard at one time that they had to register in. I don't know whether that's still applicable, is it?
I'm not aware of staff having to register in, but all staff should be completing daily timesheets of the hours that they're working. So that allows their managers to keep track of when they're working. And in terms of working from home, working from the office, presumably that will have been agreed with managers for individual members of staff.
So all staff are coming to the office. They agree that with their manager in advance, and they sign in and say who their manager is. So in terms of when they're physically here, that is the case. But then yeah, they do have to log their time for their hours of flexi time, if you like, and that can be monitored because clearly we all know you can see whether somebody's online or not from their from their Teams account and the like. So you can always, say if somebody wasn't doing the hours they say they are, we would be aware of that. But also, actually, we manage the productivity and the amount of work they do. So if you don't work any hours, we'd probably notice you haven't done any work as well. I say probably, we would.
So a manager would know what staff are doing. So if you wanted to get, so if I want to talk to a particular member of staff, a manager would know whether they were in or where they were or not. Then really, that's the idea. Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cook.
So I suppose just in discussions in relation to coming back to the offices as such, and I think it's important to note that we are still living with coronavirus. It has not disappeared. It is still there. It is still a threat. It is still just as serious, albeit the vaccine has supported us in the fact that if you do get it, then you're more likely less to die from COVID than you would if you hadn't had the vaccine. I think for me, obviously, that the home working bubble has now burst, and I think the issue around presenteeism has certainly changed in relation to the fact that we need to performance manage our staff more so than just them be in the office doing a certain job at a certain time and always thinking just because they're there, they're doing their job. So I think we've become much more flexible and agile in terms of staff that now have the ability to take their children to school and then work a bit later on in the evening. And then we've also got to bear in mind that our existing office accommodation is in need of some work. So at the present time, I won't advocate everybody coming back in at the present time, nor do I think the appetite amongst the staff is there actually from surveys I think we've discussed, Alan. So I think moving forward, it will be a blended approach in terms of what the team's requirements are against the organisations. And I think actually it's quite a positive way in which we're now working because it's actually supporting our staff to a much more extent of a level, despite the fact throughout COVID, staff were still coming in, particularly those with, conditions or needing extra support. So the offices have always been open. Obviously, we've encouraged the work from home message that the government stated. So for me, I don't think we'll ever see an organisation go back to full-time office-based working. I think that's probably across the board now, actually. And I know not that long ago, there was an article about, within 2 years, people will be back in the office full-time. And I think in certain industries, I think that'll be the case. But actually, particularly in local government, from the conferences and stuff I'm now back on with other leaders, is I think we're actually in the middle ground. Is actually a lot of organisations are looking at, minimising the cost to their assets in terms of their office accommodation, but also looking at how they can better support staff with better technology. Obviously, we've invested in a lot of money in terms of technology, so staff now can work from home, work in an agile environment. So for me, it's based against you know, the team's requirements, the officers' requirements, and also the individual's requirements as well as to what their working method is. So, you know, I think we're on the right tracks at the minute, and obviously there will be a decision coming up at some point in the next few months about our office accommodation and what we do with that, how that works and how that looks. And obviously that will predicate the discussion in terms of future ways of working as well.
Thank you, Councillor Cook. Talking of IT, obviously a lot of people are very adept at IT. Are we managing people who aren't so switched on with IT, you know, checking that they understand how to use their computer in the most effective way, etc. And I'm talking from an age point of view myself. You know, I can use the computer, but to its full benefit, I'm not so sure. And I think that's probably with members as well, as well as staff. Is that a fair point? What are we keeping an eye on that?
Yeah, so I think, well, I'll probably let Alan come in at this point. Obviously, I've got responsibility for IT, and I think, you know, obviously we work with our staff in terms of their IT requirements, if they need any additional equipment or technology. We do training courses as well for those that need extra support. The only thing I'd probably say, Sharon, is age is no longer one of those excuses with IT anymore, because you know, sometimes when what do I say, you know, you might ring your grandparents and then she'll say, oh, I've seen this on Twitter, and you're thinking, oh my, you know, wow, what have you seen? So actually, you know, age isn't an irrelevance, actually, because if you look at lockdown, actually, you know, the FaceTime calls and everything we all enjoyed with family members, that, you know, a year ago or 2 years ago, I'd have never expected. But now, you know, my grandparents have got iPads and they're well away.
Yeah, I take your point, but it was just really just, you know what I'm saying? We have these wonderful computers. yeah.
I did assist the position leader today.
I think it always goes back to what we did at school, so whether we had computer studies, and I think I can certainly raise my hand and say no. Okay, thank you. Do you want to add anything more, Alan? Yeah.
I think Councillor Cook covered most of that off. Really, he's absolutely right. But what we have found is that actually the pandemic's really accelerated our use, our knowledge of ICT, hasn't it? We had time. I got Teams installed on my computer about 2 years ago. I had not a clue what it was for, why I would want to use it, why I would ever want to use it. And now I never pick up the phone. That's what we do. If I need to talk to somebody, it's Teams. It's become part of my everyday. So, you know, I've changed one-to-one on Teams. This is it's the new world, and it's accelerated that for me as an individual. And of course, through our appraisal process, we'll pick up where people are struggling with certain items on that to get the best out of it, and, you know, getting those top tips out there. And again, we can use the all staff message as well to get some of those top tips about how to better use the equipment that we've got. But honestly, you know, you've got lots of people who would never use Teams before, and then within 2 weeks they were only using Teams. I think that the kind of step change was incredible for all of us, me included. So I do think probably people are a bit more savvy now. You know, everybody's doing their online shopping as well, aren't they? So everybody's using computers a lot more than they ever were.
I can see a couple of shaking. Well, one shaking. Thank you. Yeah, no, I completely get your point, but it probably is something that we should bear in mind going forward. So, any other questions? Oh, Councillor Kelly. No, you're fine.
Hi, it's me again. Just a quick one, really. I just wondered whether there are parameters of time in which people are allowed to flexibly work, or do you allow them to work all hours of the 24 hours of the day, or is it within certain time limits? That was question one. I'll give question two in a minute.
Okay, so the answer is no, not really. Although it goes back to my original point: business comes first. So if you're somebody in a front-facing department, if you're in democratic services, you can't work
9 o'clock at night.
You can't, yeah, because your customers aren't there then, are they? So it is about the business as well, but there are no kind of restrictions on when those hours should be worked necessarily. And there is a risk, it's the other way, I think, as well, is that actually we need to be really conscious that people aren't working more hours than they really should. because it's really easy sat at home just to carry on working
Yeah.
when just to keep going and to not realise when it's time to pack up. And that's something that we are conscious of with burnout of our staff, and ensuring that we're not, because it becomes a different kind of presenteeism, because you can tell who's online when you're online. And if you think, well, people want to be, instead of being last to leave the office, they want to be last to log off their computer, then that's really unhealthy. But yeah, we don't have a restriction, but we would be concerned if people were working particularly long hours, and also we always put business first. So if your business needs you to be in normal office hours, then that's when I'd expect you to be working in the main.
So a manager will know which hours there are
Yeah.
of the day that
Yeah.
people are working. That was my first question. My other question was related to my own experience, really. If I were to contact the council 4 years ago as a member of the public by telephone, I would find it very easy to find people in their departments and speak to them and ask things of them. Is there any way we are evaluating how our public at SKDC is accessing services from us? Because there are a lot of grumpy people who say they can never get through. I'm quite tired of an Americanized, would I like to leave a message? No, generally I wouldn't like to leave a message. I'd like to talk to a person. I don't think we're as available as we were, and that does worry me to some extent.
Certainly, we've seen a dramatic increase in demand for our services over the last couple of years, obviously because of a lot to do with the pandemic, and there have been increases in that demand, and there's constantly reviewing how that works. I'm also looking at how we can get rid of some of the demand that isn't necessary, so to ensure that people who contacting us need to contact us, so we're kind of solving their problems before they need to ring. So that's one approach, because the demand is constantly growing. We need to kind of book that trend as well. But we are very much aware of the kind of the increases in demand, and we're working with all the departments. I think it's the demand increase rather than the availability that has caused this. That the supply of staff has not changed. They do the same job wherever they are. It doesn't make any difference. And if you've got a public-facing job, office hours would need to be covered then. And that, as I said, that business comes first. So if you've got a public-facing job, I would expect that you work at the hours you would expect the public to contact us, not when not when the phones are closed down or whatever. That's the idea, is that those are covered. So if you have any examples, maybe we can talk about this offline.
Yeah.
Councillor Cook.
I think, Chairman, I think Councillor Kelly is making a valid point in terms of the call system and the call routing system, because ideally, if you're calling between the hours of isn't it 8:45 till 4:45, which is the official, or 5 o'clock, which is the official opening hours, if you call a team, if that individual doesn't pick up, it should go through. It should be, isn't it a tag team, where it then goes to the next available person in that team? So somebody should be answering the phone, and at the last resort, it should be a message with a callback function.
Yes, and the other thing is the phone sometimes just rings and then goes dead. And people don't find that helpful. And while lots of people have examples of older people who are very competent with IT, we have a lot of public, demographically, we have an older population in SK. And I can think of plenty of people I know as my residents in my area who cannot use a computer. And they want to ring up and they want to talk to somebody. So I just thought that we need to be very aware of meeting the needs of the people that we serve. That was just my point, really. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a very, very good point, and thank you. Any more questions, please? Right. Thank you very much, Helen, for answering all our questions and hopefully giving us some reassurance of the positive work that's been done. Okay. So we move on to the next item, which is item 9 on pages, can be found on pages 75 and 76. It's the work programme for 2021 to 2022. Just before we have the presentation, as I'm fairly new to the committee, when we give an update, can I also ask what months the 2021 to 2022 covers, and why there's no forecasted start or end days have been assigned to the last 6 items? So I don't know who wants to give a refresh, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, so it runs through, it's a civic year. So the meetings that are in the civic year should be included in this, but they wouldn't include ones where no items have yet been added to the work programme, to the dates. In terms of these things that need to be added out, certainly I'll work with yourself and with the portfolio holder to work out when these are reasonable dates that these can come before committee. Obviously, some of those, certainly there's another one I think that needs to be included around the the intranet is on there. So I'll work with both cabinet members, both for IT and for the employment committee to work that one through. But we'll get more of those assigned for you for the next one. We'll work with yourself, Chairman, and with Councillor Mason to make sure they're all what ones that can be are assigned as a matter of urgency.
Thank you. Understand, Councillor Mason, you want to come back on that?
Yeah, the gender pay gap needs to be put onto the work programme. I'm not sure exactly the month that it needs to come to committee. Do you know? Is it March? Because that's a statutory one that we have to do each year, so that needs to be put on it. But generally, the items to be assigned are just annual updates. So is a committee, if there's anything that they want or you want to be put onto the work programme, then please say and let us know and we can work to it.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Mason. I fully admit I am new to this committee, certainly new as a chairperson. So any advice is gratefully received and I'll follow that up. Thank you.
Councillor Wood, followed by Councillor Trent.
Okay. Councillor Wood?
Chairman, I just noticed on the work programme, we've got pay review March next year. Don't we want to discuss the pay review? I understand at the moment the unions, I think, are being balloted on when they go on strike. So, do we need to discuss that probably at the next meeting rather than the pay review? So the pay review has currently not been decided, I understand, for this year. I know an offer's been made, and I think the unions at the moment are being balloted. I'm sure the leader can update it. So is that better to put that on before March 2022? That's what I'm saying, really.
Alan, are you able to answer that?
It's about language, because the pay review is something that we're doing outside of the normal annual pay negotiations. So that's something we're looking at, the way we do our pay and reward system is structured. So that's something separate. It's not part of the national negotiations for your kind of inflationary pay rise. And you're absolutely right. We received notification, I think yesterday, that the latest offer from the employer side has been turned down, and that there are ballots planned for the next 6 to 8 weeks for all the unions that are impacted on us. So it could be something that we could bring back at an earlier date, Councillor Ward, to give the committee the opportunity to look at where we are with the pay negotiations. But I think a realistic date for the review is still March, because it's a different thing.
Yeah, just coming back on that, we'll discuss, what you've asked for when we next get together, and if we think it's prudent, then we'll bring it back. It depends how the agenda is looking for January, but yes, certainly noted. Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Trollope-Blue.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. It's just a question on your work programme. Do we need to include on there the information that's coming forward on the actual date of the meeting that we're holding? Because obviously today's the 17th and we've got a whole list on the work programme of all the items that's going to appear on the 17th of November. Do we need to have that on there, being that it's already on the agenda that we're talking about now.
Yeah.
And of
Okay.
course, you know, it's environmentally friendly if you're saving a little bit of paper.
It's a.
Yeah.
It's a really good point. Is normal. So in my experience, it is normal to include those on there on work program, including this day. But you're right. I don't see the value of it. So I'll work with my my colleagues in Democratic Services to review that. It's an excellent point. It will make it page shorter, wouldn't it? We've already got the agenda at the front, haven't we? So it doesn't need to be on there twice.
Yeah, good point. Thank you very much. Any other questions, please? Okay. So if we can move on to the final item on the agenda for today's meeting is any other business. Please raise your hand if we have any other business to discuss. Silence is golden. Thank you. Going, on, last chance. I need to stamp my hammer. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for attending today, and particularly to those officers and members for their updates and reports. I know, you know, we've moved fairly swiftly through. It's just after 11:30, but I think we've covered a huge range of subjects, you know, and a lot of reassurance, maybe a few learning curves. But for me personally, and I hope for the rest of the committee, it's been a very worthwhile meeting today after the sad news that we received. Thank you. I believe our next scheduled meeting is Wednesday, the 19th of January 2022, back in the council chamber, I say hopefully. As we move towards celebrating Christmas and into 2022, let's reflect on 2021 and look forward, and remember to be kind and considerate to others, putting differences aside. I look forward to seeing you all at the next employment meeting in 2022. And once again, I'll bid you a safe journey. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you very much.